This is Cowboy Shit with Ted Stovin and Wacey Anderson. Brought to you by Everything Cowboy.
Welcome to episode 116 of Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey. My name is Ted Stovin. He is Wacey Anderson. And we're here with our first ever guest from the Chuckwagon Racing world. And
from Chucklandia.
From Chucklandia. And I got to say, my apologies to the Chuckwagon world for taking this long. But I don't know if anybody there has listened before, or, I can't tell you if anyone in that world has much. So
I think we do have some fans in there, because I met Tough Dragger at TP Creek last summer, and he was wearing a Cowboy Shit sweater and a hoodie, and a hat. Well, so then we do have some fans. So then, sorry we took so long to get someone from the Chuckwagon world on the show. I think, in saying that though, I think it's good timing with Stampede being back with their truck. Like, it's a full season of Chuckwagons are back. So I think it's true. Timing wise, it works out well. So sorry, but also not sorry.
And with the amount of people that are following our stuff now in the US, for those of you listening from south of the 49th parallel, you may not know what Chuckwagon Racing is. So this show may or may not be of interest to you, but we hope that you stick around for the journey and hear what Rae has to say, because it was a pretty fun show. And if you ever, have any ambitions to travel and come see us in Calgary, then the Chuckwagon Racing is a pretty big part of the Stampede. So a little bit of insider info here if you haven't seen Chuckwagon before. Chuckwagon Racing, a little bit about it.
We probably post like a video or something of Chuckwagon Racing. Probably we'll try and track something down. Maybe Rae can send us a cool video or something, or we can get something to work on something there. It's
a good call. But this show happened because my friend Raleigh Jones called me out of the blue from back in the day. We used to go to the high school rodeos together back when we were 15, 16, and said, hey, you should get Rae Croteau on the show. I'm like, oh yeah, good idea. So I called Rae that night, and then the next day we had him on the show. So thanks to Riley for reminding me to get Rae on the show. And so here it is. Here we are. And it's May. Wacey, it's May. And this show's out on isn't it May the 4th? Like May the 4th.
The 4th, baby. It's a big month for the Star Wars folks.
Star Wars Day.
Star Wars Day. And the Obi-Wan Kenobi series comes out in 3 weeks. So that's huge for anybody who's a Star Wars fan. Like, huge, like really big. I'm fucking fired up. I'm fired up. It's also, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say it's also Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay.
Something that
I thought that would have been February.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so that's the topic to be talked about. So it's cool to talk about stuff.
And our friend Core Blund has been having some shows in Calgary. We've got to you went to one, I went to one. We're also going to go tonight. We're recording the show on Monday, and gonna go.
He's ripping, man. He is ripping.
Yeah,
and when I went last week, man, that was one of the best sets I've ever seen Core play in my life. Like the band, like everybody's dialed.
I like the bass and harmonica player. That guy is
he is very good. He is very, very, very
big
good.
Fan of that guy.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, slapping the shit out of that bass.
Did you go? Were you at the Palomino?
Yeah, in the basement.
That's a cool venue for music.
I went there on Friday. Yeah, it was neat. Yeah. The last time I remember being there, I think I saw Lindy Ortega there.
Yeah,
a long time ago.
Good place for lunch or supper. Good barbecue.
Yeah,
and a heck of a music venue.
I had the brisket, and I can honestly say I didn't honestly love parts of it. I don't know if it was a bad part of the day or if I got a fatty piece of brisket, but was not super impressed with the brisket. But the cornbread, lights out. And
I had brisket there like a week ago for lunch, and it was really, really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No,
it's been a bad goal.
Might have had a bad batch. Who knows? Bad slice.
The garlic fries there are also very, very good.
Really? What about the King Eddie? What do they got for food? You ever go there?
I've never been. This is my first time tonight, man.
Okay, me too. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, cool. Do you know like the story about the King Eddie, how they rebuilt it like brick by brick from they did Studio Bell? Really. Yeah, so they built the new Studio Bell, which is like downtown Calgary, and part of it was like attaching it to the King Eddie. So they had to like tear it down. They numbered each brick individually, and they rebuilt it like brick by brick. So it stayed, because it's like a 100-year-old building. It's like an OG Calgary place. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a cool venue. It's got a lot of history. So I'm excited to go check it out.
It's gonna be interesting. So
yeah, it'll be fun.
I gotta fill you in too, Wace. So I was talking to my friend Josh the other day. He runs an audio company here in town.
FM,
I was like,
right?
yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm not that busy next week. And he's like, oh, well, come to work for me. And I'm like, Yeah, sure, why not? So I went to went to the Stampede grounds today and helped set up the red lot, like the parking lot where everybody can watch the hockey games.
Dude.
So
we're gonna get into some playoff hockey stuff here in the second half, but that's cool, man. Good for you. That'll be 9 to 5. Calgary's gonna be buzzing.
Man, 9 to 5. My first 9 to 5 workday in quite a while. It was different.
How was it?
It was different. I talked to Storm on the phone on the way home. She was like, "So what did you think?" And I'm like, didn't love it. Not gonna lie. Like I made it through. It was fine. Like, you know, it was good to just turn my brain off for a while and just like do some work and learn some new stuff because they run some pretty big shit compared to what we do. So it was neat to like see how that worked and learn some shit. But she was like, "Yeah, well, at least you learned what, you know, at least you figured out you're in the right place. You don't want to do the 9 to 5 stuff." So, and it was still like working outside and working an event. It's
been a beautiful day in Calgary too to be outside.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit of sun on me there, but yeah, it was a sweet day. Learned some new shit, but yeah, I'm pretty pumped for some playoff hockey. I ended up I won't be at the first 2 games. We got stuff going on now, but hopefully, I mean, I would be fine if Calgary swept it and there was no game 5, but game 5 is probably when I'm hitting it up, going to watch.
Good man.
Whatever that is. So
I think Calgary gets, well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in the next half because we got some hockey we're going to get into, but yeah.
Tell me what else you got on the top of the show here. You had a couple things.
Man, so 2022 rodeo season is officially back.
Yeah.
And we're kind of getting the events rolling. Like the pro rodeo season's already started. The CCA
Darby's on the road.
Rodeo, Darby's on the road.
Stay tuned to everythingcowboy.com for some coverage from the Darbinator.
The Darbinator getting stuff done. But yeah, it's been good. Things are fire. It's good to see events back. And so, yes, I worked the North
full
Battleford.
Events too, eh?
Yeah. Oh, dude. Friday and Saturday night, North Battleford were about as full as you could get it. Yeah, it was really cool to see us. I think folks are like excited that events are back, be able to get out and about, have some beer, see some old friends, that kind of deal. One thing I did notice is the lack of contestants. I mean, maybe this might just be a CCA thing or whatever, but throughout the weekend, there was 6 tie-down ropers total out of 2 performances, 5 steer wrestlers,
3 performances,
maybe.
Right?
Well, it was a short round Sunday. It was like championship Sunday. So they brought people back.
Really? Wait, so there was only 6 contestants though, or 6 runs? 6
contestants. Like the whole,
in 2 days?
In 2 days. In the tie-down roping, steer wrestling, there was less than 6 in the saddle bronc riding. There was 1 bareback rider, and there was maybe a handful of bull riders. No, there was like 8 or 9 bull riders over the 2 days.
Jeez, that's rough. So what they have? How'd they have a show? Like what else did they have in the show? Had bullfights.
They had bullfights, and then they had like a couple clown acts, and there was lots of there's full barrel racing, obviously, and team roping.
Okay.
But they had novice events as well, but it was just one of those things.
Steer riding? How many steer riders?
No steer riding, nothing. It wasn't even on the show.
Was it not an event?
Must not have been included. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. But yeah, it was weird. It's weird. It's funny to me that there was that little, especially in events where there's traditionally lots of folks, right? Like, so I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if folks maybe like the weekend warriors who usually used to do that. Maybe they found other stuff to do over the last 2 years, or maybe it's too expensive to go. But the one thing Storm and I were talking about at lunch today is like, we got to find, it's funny with the saddle, like the horse riding events, how little people there are. And we need to find ways to get, I think it's kind of in the same position that bull riding was in like a few years ago, where the bulls were so much better than the riders. That was hard. We weren't really pumping out a lot of quality guys, or a lot of guys climbing up the ladder through the grassroots to the pros. But I think the bull riding is slowly catching up. Like I was talking to Perry Gursky, and he said there's 18 bull riders in Saskatchewan High School Rodeo right now. Really? He said that there's a good group of them should go on to continue. So
you saw Perry in North Battleford? Was he there?
Yeah, he's judging. Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, we were bullshitting and have a couple of beers and stuff. Yeah, it's good. Good to see old Perry. But yeah, I don't know. It was just funny to me that those events were so light, and it's just I think we need to figure something out, or like find ways. Yeah, I don't know how an explanation for it, but it was an observation of that. I think, like I said, especially the timed events side, where usually you have a lot of folks doing it, and there wasn't really that many. But they did add the breakaway roping this year as full time to the CCA, which is really cool. So I think there's like 17 entries or 20 entries or something like that, which is pretty good. So stuff is doing well, but there's a few events that are lacking, and we need to get some people going. So we need to find a way. I'm not too sure what the solution is there, but something to be wary of, something to be mindful of moving forward in rodeo.
Ted and Wacey's rodeo school for kids who want to learn how to do rodeo and other
Storm and I we had a really good brainstorm session about how we could take the rodeo school experience to the next level than just the inside of the arena stuff. We could add in some outside of the arena elements, but I would add a lot of benefit to that stuff.
Man,
but that's a conversation we can have off the line.
Do you remember that one of these guys reached out asking about rodeo school or something, and I said I didn't see many on the list. There was a few things here and there, like, and I sent him a couple links, and I was like, but hey, what about this? And I said, Wacey and I'll train you and teach you. But then he never got back. He just ghosted us. I got scared, I guess.
Yeah, yes. I guess they didn't want it that bad. But
you know what I was thinking the other day though about rodeo side of things is that there's no entry level position at a very young age. You can play hockey when you're organized hockey when you're 5, 6. It's kind of the entry point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. 5 or 6. And then you go, because there's a scenario I'll bring up here in a moment, but soccer you can play while you're in school, volleyball, basketball, badminton, baseball, like all these different things you can start when you're like 6 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start at 6 years old in an organized environment with rodeo? Anywhere from 6 to 12, because you don't start like steer riding in the CPRA till you're 12.
Yeah,
or high school or junior high.
It'd be like pee-wee barrel racing at like a Caro rodeo.
Yeah, right. That's the only entry
event.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it kind of like made me think, and I called Scott Schiffner about it because he's on the Alberta High School Rodeo board now, I think. So I called him and left a message. We haven't got connected on the phone yet, but I'm wondering like what, they've got junior high rodeo, which is probably this next step after the Pee-wee barrel racing or the mutton busting, which mutton busting's,
it's not organized. It's the fun.
Yeah, it's a
value add to the show. Yeah,
it's not an actual. I don't know, whatever, but what does that look like? Where's that entry point? There's some little britches rodeos and a few little things like that, but I wonder where that like.
Where the small spurs too, they were doing some cool stuff.
That's right. That's a great example here in Alberta, but then again, it's only in southern Alberta around Claire's home. So I wonder what that looks like. It's kind of been on my brain a little bit because I realized I'm like, well, shit, we don't have that entry level spot really. Where Small Spurs was doing that, but that's only one spot out of the entire province. And they were doing a hell of a job with the steer riders. They kicked ass. There was a lot of good kids in that little program. So. Yeah.
And I guess this is like less than an entry level thing, but like Sask High School Rodeo added in like the bareback and like saddle bronco and the steers, the roping steers in the junior high,
right?
I think that must be across the board, but still, it's not an entry point.
What age is junior high anyways?
I think it's grade 7.
And how old is a kid at grade 7? Like 12?
Like 11 or 12. Yeah. Yeah.
You're still missing that
pretty
6 to
I know. Yeah.
range, hey?
Yeah.
So I just, it kind of like crossed my mind the other day. I was like, holy shit, maybe this is why, because we don't have that entry level and it's fucking dangerous too. Right. So
that's it. Yeah. That's the one thing too, is exposing some kids like that at such a young age to something to the danger side of things. It's almost
right. Where
how do you do it?
I don't think the mini bronc riding is the answer either.
No,
it's a disaster most of the time.
And even the mini bull riding, you see those little young kids getting on those little bulls. Yeah. It's like I don't like your body's still growing, and there's so much. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I love it, but I mean, I don't know. There's got to be a way. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the junior NFR stuff. Some of it, like I don't know. I'm just something to dream about. So, anyways, better get on to the next part of the show. But, so
good conversation to think about. Yeah.
Couple of thoughts.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, we'll be back with our interview with Rae Croteau Jr. right after this. Thanks for listening. This is Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey, and we are on the 116th episode. Make sure to check out everythingcowboy.com. Check it out. We got news, dart meters, looking some stuff up, videos, good times. We'll be back after this.
There's the horn, and the charge is underway, and a quick start for Rae Croteau Jr. as he gets southbound and out of town. Neighbors, leaders in the industry. Rae Croteau Jr. leaders on the racetrack tonight as he takes a 2-wagon length lead over Tim Harrelson's outfit with Through Tubing Solutions. Ryan Lavicane right along.
Hey, Rae Croteau, what a beautiful turn. That was awesome.
Tighter than I like, but holy cow. Keep an eye on my outriders, Tom.
Hey, when you're going for it, you got to go. And you missed that barrel by like 2 inches. So what a beautiful barrel turn.
Rae Croteau Jr. clear the leader by 2.5. Look at this. Through Tubing, Tim Harrelson.
Welcome to episode 116, Cowboy Show. Ted and Wacey. We are at our interview segment of the day, and it's kind of I guess I want to say like it's kind of a special show because I've been
groundbreaking for us.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have well, it's funny. We talked to Jeff Hammond on the last show. He's a race NASCAR, and we talked about Chuckwagon Racing, and I actually screwed up because the clip that we recorded with him about Chuckwagon Racing never made the show because I fucked up and didn't get it in there. Didn't send the files over, so we have that as a special social clip you may have seen now, but didn't make the show. So, anyways, we've got our first Chuckwagon driver on the show this week, so we appreciate the time. But he had 18 seasons before he came back, but he's back this year. He was the top selling driver at the Grand Prairie Stampede auction just the other day. Made it to the finals of the Calgary Stampede 2014. Had a horse named to the Calgary Stampede's Equine that's a hard one. Equine Award of Excellence in 2000 and what was the year? Actually, I don't have a year on that. Anyways, he was the 2015 GMC Sierra Cup Series Championship. He spent 15 years on the WPCA Tour after starting out in the CPCA. His family was in the chuckwagon business for, I want to say since the beginning. I don't know for sure. We'll get to that here later on, but third-generation Chuckwagon driver. Won the CPCA's Meadow Lake Stampede in 2001. He was the CPCA's High Point Rookie Outrider in 1996. High Point Rookie Driver in 1999. Won the Klondike Days Championship in the WPCA in one of his first years going in the WPCA. And I could list off a number of things here, but we'll just get right to it. Please welcome to the show, Chuckwagon Racing. I don't even know I don't know how to say this, but
he's almost the Brett Favre of Chuckwagon Racing now.
Yeah.
Coming out of retirement and getting back to it.
Rae
I like that
Croteau
analogy.
Jr.,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. You got Tom Brady comes back, unretires. You got Brett Favre unretires, come back, and Rae Croteau Jr. He had a name to the list. One of the probably one of the only, I don't know this for sure. I should have asked Billy probably, but one of the only Chuckwagon drivers to ever come back out of retirement. Is that right, or am I totally completely wrong here? There are lots of guys.
Yeah, well, most of the guys when they retire, they're
old.
Older than a wore out set of cowboy boots. So they they're old. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, I'm retired when I was 35, 36, took half a dozen years off, and anyways, just kind of did a few different things and went traveling and camping and fishing, and I don't know, I just kind of maybe realized where I belong, and I don't mind belonging in that, in the wagon world, and spent some time helping Chance Vlad last summer, which kind of really suckered me back in because Chance outrode for me when I was still racing and helped me out a lot. And then I got out, I was retired for a year, and then he got in the wagon box and got racing, and then just this last year I went and helped him out again, and kind of got the blood flowing and got me thinking. And he was kind enough to let me in the barn and actually, let me drive some horses and help him figure out his horses. And that's kind of part of the game that I really liked, is, just figuring out the horse and where they got to go and what they're good at and just piecing it all together. Right. So after that, about a month doing that, I was right back in it. Couldn't get out. Sucked me back in.
How hard is it to make a comeback in Chuckwagon Racing? Like, it's different than like a bull rider or Brett Favre or Tom Brady saying they're coming back. They just got to put the pads on and get their reps in. Whereas you got to get the horses, get the wagon, get the rig, get the crew, get all that stuff to get happening again. Like, that's got to be a task in its own.
Yeah. So my approach was I didn't want to rebuild from scratch. I had an opportunity with BJ Carey was retiring. And we made a deal, and I, just basically acquired, and it costs a little bit more money and whatnot. It's maybe a bigger risk to throw your nuts on the line, but you're going with a core veteran group that, you can build around. Some horses that are maybe a little bit older that you can train with and teach the new ones. And then that core group that's middle-aged horses that are competitive and you can do some damage with right out of the gate. So, there was 2 or 3 guys that were wanting to sell, and I've went back and forth between all of them and just, I decided to buy BJ's outfit, and financially made probably the most sense, I guess. And then the group of horses were I guess perfect age and just right in their prime to really kind of break out. So that's why I did it that way. I didn't want to start from scratch and have to break all new ones, and and then go through those first 4 or 5 years where you're trying to build that core group, and you're weeding through a bunch of horses, where here you just kind of hit the ground running, and hopefully that commitment into the higher priced investment is going to pay you back sooner, right? So
well, that'll make your climb back up the ladder a bit easier too, because you got to start right from scratch in that regard when it comes to like your standing or your qualifications when it comes to getting to these bigger events.
Yeah, exactly. So with the way the WPCA's kind of set up their permit program this year, I got to be tough the first 3 shows, and I got to qualify. So there's 2 spots going into Ponoka that the permit drivers are all kind of competing for. And then if you're in the top 2 of the permit drivers, you get to race there, and then you still compete for the rest of the year to get into the finals. So, for permit guys, there's a little bit of pressure. There's no days off. There's, you got to be gunning, because otherwise you miss a Ponoka, there's sponsorship and then prize money. And then you get to the finals and, different shows like that. And it's hard to put a full season together and be committed, and just, there's too much time off if you're missing shows, right? So
how many permit drivers are there this season?
I think there's 5 or 6 right now. Like it's not a super, huge group or tough group, but you still got to be right. And, any, I guess, competitor, regardless of who you're competing against, I want to be in the top 8, top 5 of the entire association, regardless of the permit guys, right? So my mindset was always like, I guess you're going to be in Ponoka, you're going to be at the finals, right? Like that's just my approach. I never thought of anything else or it turning out any other way. So
when you mentioned Ponoka and got to go do well at the first few shows, the Ponoka tarp auction is this Friday that the show comes out. So it's May 6th. How does the qualifications work if the tarp auction is already happening on like this week?
So they sell those 2 spots as wild cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
They'll probably have a list of the permit guys, and here's who you might be able to get depending on how they do. Okay. And then, so honestly, it's maybe not the best approach for them, because I can't bring one of my advertisers to the sale and say, hey, buy one of those spots or buy the first spot. I'm going to be that spot. What if I'm not, right? So
yeah,
I might end up with a little less sponsor money and somebody that I'm not familiar with, or I could take a chance and maybe buy the spot myself, and then resell it if I do make it, or sell it back to the next driver if I don't make it. I don't know. It's a gamble, but I just kind of let the cards fall where they do, and I'll be there, and I'm going to be tough and be fit and be ready. So
how common is that for you guys to bring like folks to buy your tarps with you? Like I didn't realize that was a thing we had like guys in place before. I thought it was more of a random type deal, but is that more of a common practice? You build these relationships obviously over the years, but
yeah,
is it kind of a 50-50 split almost?
No, I would say it's like 20% random. The rest are
really,
wagon drivers have done their homework, or they have their groups, they have their guys that enjoy it, and then they kind of put their little clan together, and then everybody picks their shows that they want, and you just kind of keep in touch. Because honestly, for me to sell most of the tour was easier than I thought. Actually, I just reached out to some guys that I've stayed in touch with, and we've had fun whether I was racing or not racing, and they're willing to jump back in and had some luck along the way finding a couple new people. And yeah, it's tough. Some drivers they're not good at selling themselves, right? And they're shy, or they're not confident to just make a phone call or reach out or ask other past sponsors for a little help, and maybe don't have the connections or whatnot, right? So it's it's good. You try to bring a couple guys to the tarp sale, but most often you've only got one there, and then wherever it goes, right?
Before we got too far too far down the rabbit hole here, we have a pretty decent sized audience in the U.S. now, Ray. So about half the listeners in the last few months are in the U.S. So for those that don't maybe know, let's kind of give a little background on the Chuckwagon side of things. And, for those that are rodeo fans that are listening, Ray brought his Rainbow Chuckwagon to the Wrangler NFR in 2013 and made a few laps. So if you were at the NFR in 2013 on Thursday night, the second Thursday of the NFR, which is Canada night, Ray did a full figure eight inside the Thomas and Mack, which was pretty impressive for tight quarters and Chuckwagon racing. And I think the craziest part was probably going in and out that alley. Probably, I'm thinking, trying to not
get
in a wreck on the
looking back, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work because it all started out was Madison McDonald got my oldest daughter Cora down there to trick ride, and then
the year before, wasn't it? Or was it that year?
It was that same year, yeah. So then they were looking for something new for Canada night, and they said, well, what's more Canadian than wagon racing? And Madison's like, well, you're already bringing Cora down. Why don't you see if her dad will come and bring some horses? So their stipulation was, you're not just going to bring some workhorses or some trotters. They wanted me to keep their reds in shape. And then reassure them on the process of how we're going to come in there and perform and make it look good. So at the time where I was living, we had a riding arena and we'd kind of mocked it up. We'd turn the lights out, a big fancy flashlight to put a spotlight on us, and we just got horses used to the inside. And then a lot of times those horses, they get a little claustrophobic when they come inside, right? So they don't charge and they're not as aggressive. So we used to do this in Bonnyville when the pro rodeo was indoors in Bonnyville. So like back when I was in my late teens and dad and grandpa always had done it, they'd go indoors. But so I kind of knew what we were up against, and I just picked all my kind of runaway or chargiest horses to take down there, which kind of sounds cowboy, but you need it when you get into those buildings because they kind of just climb down, right? So but yeah, we rehearsed it 5 times, and then we rehearsed after the rodeo at night. So there's 3 times where we hooked 4 up, so all 4 horses, and then the last 2 we just hooked up in 2s. And the very last time we rehearsed, it was like the night before, and they were worried about how big of grooves I was going to leave in the arena, because if I left a mess and they had to harrow, I was going to get cut from the act, right? So anyways, bigger deal. But we come down Thomas and Mack, it's underground, right? So you come down the ramp and there's about 500-600 yards of pavement where we're driving these horses up, and I kind of warned the crew. I said, you guys got to tell the cowboys that there's a wagon coming, just because I'm familiar with when we raced in Cheyenne, and we'd hook in the mornings and there'd be cowboys out on the track, and if a lot of them steer wrestling horses or barrel horses or any team ropers, calf ropers, if them horses haven't seen a wagon in that rumble, I don't know what it does, but they don't like it, and they'll run sideways and run into stuff. And anyways, so
a wreck.
Yeah, it's a wreck. So it was a wreck when we come out, but I'll get to that. So anyhow, we get down into the alley, and there's a set of gates that we pull up to, and then they close a door behind us to keep it dark, right? And there's like 4 feet in the front and 3 feet in the back, and I can't remember one of the bareback riders comes down the tunnel right from the side of us, and they're running up to jump on their grand entry horses when they come in with the flags, right? And he kicks the door open, and he's like, "Woo!" Well, my wheelers just bang, and they jump, right, and like they're ready to go, like they're hot and horny. And anyhow, he looked at me, he's like, those guys are ready, and run up to his horse. And so everything was cued to the music. They kicked the gates open, and we're sitting there, and then they're waving us, and there's about 150 feet probably till we crested into the arena. So as soon as they waved me, like I just whipped them horses, and we tried to come out of the dark and into the light as quick as we could, right? So they had like a big mist air cannon thing off the back of my wagon, and as soon as I come through the gates, they'd trip that, and we did like 1.5 laps and then right back out. It was all of like 8.5 seconds. And
yeah, it was. I think I have a video. It was like 13 seconds is the entire piece, start to finish.
Yeah, Chance Vlad was actually down there helping me do it, and I said, Vladdy, let's go in there and let's roll this thing on its side.
Dude,
like, we'll be famous forever. And he's looking at me. He's like, oh, it was like back in the day when he's helping me and we're out riding and, breaking horses in the spring. And you kind of do get into some wrecks. And he's thinking back of all the wrecks we've been in and, instances. And anyhow, he wasn't all for it. But yeah, we come up and out of the tunnel and we pull them up and they're kind of bouncing and prancing on the concrete there. And we're headed back to where the barn was. And cowboys are coming and horses are starting to spook, and there's a steer wrestler. His horse went sideways probably 50, 60 feet, and then he fell off, and that horse run down the concrete. And oh man, so we stopped. Yeah, we stopped, and I'm like I feel bad, right? Like they got some sideshow goof like me there with my wagon, and these guys are there competing for money, and these horses are scattering like sheep, and you don't want them to get hurt, don't want the cowboys to get hurt, or stuff like that, right? So anyhow, everything was fine. Nobody got hurt, and there's a few kind of disgruntled guys, but you apologize and you try to sneak back to the barns and get on a hook and get out of town before anybody come pop your tires.
Some upset barrel racers.
Oh yeah.
Well, and so for our folks that might not know, the sport of chuckwagon racing has been around since I don't know all the details, but the first time it was at the Calgary Stampede, to my memory, was 1923. I believe was the first Stampede. But the chuckwagon racing business had gone on a long time since then. But maybe would you give us a little bit of a
history lesson?
Yeah, just a little history lesson, Ray, and then as far as you mentioned Cheyenne, so speak about that a little bit, and you can say how phony the Houston chuckwagon racing is, and go however you want.
Yeah, like the Houston part, they're just pony wagons, so they're basically half the size of our horses, and it's just a show. It's an indoor entertainment thing, and it's good watching if they start rubbing wheels and banging and maybe falling out here and there. But as for wagon racing, like our family got into it into the late 60s. That was Grandpa Ray. And then it was mid to early 70s where he had a few different designs on his wagon. So a lot of people always question me about the rainbow because rainbow's gay pride, right? So anyways, the rainbow was, one spring he had told his daughters, hey, go paint something on the wagon. And that's what they did. They painted a rainbow on the wagon. So I think we had the rainbow long before the other guys did, but anyways. And then from there, like Dad got racing, it would have been probably 85, 86, somewhere's there. And I was about 5-6 years old, and I've just kind of been around it for my entire life. So spent 30 years, at the Calgary Stampede every July. Started out riding when I was 14. I was kind of a bigger, stronger kid, 5'6", 5'7", could handle those horses when I was that young and got into it. And then outrode probably till I was about 18, 19. But I started driving when I was 16. I think I was just starting to kind of get a little haywire around home and on the farm, and I got a truck, and I was maybe gonna lead myself astray, and my dad reeled me back in and said, hey, do you want to run a wagon? And that kind of gave me something to really focus on and work towards, and put some of that extra energy towards. And and from there we raced and had pretty good career throughout. Some things with time off and looking back, and there's always things you learn and things you want to do different, maybe a little bit, and things you never change, right? So I love the years looking back, how I grew up on the wagons and all the family and the friends and stuff like that. It's a good atmosphere for kids and their social skills, because when they're young, they're meeting new people pretty much every weekend, and they have to talk to sponsors, and they make new friends, and they're traveling, get to see the countryside. And that's what took me to Cheyenne. I think I got to go to Cheyenne probably 10 or 11 years in a row. We were there for the 100th. And, we got to run around, and we were roping at the King Rope store. And, we're parked in the back where all the bands were setting up on the stage. That's where the wagons come on the track. So meet Brooks and Dunn and, Billy Dean and Chris Ledoux, and guys were just sitting there watching the wagons come through. And then you'd get tickets, I was just old enough, there's the grand entry girls are called the dandies. So I was just old enough that I was kind of tricking into making some friends with the dandies, and then you'd get some tickets and go to standing room only. And, you're 8-10 feet from Chris Ledoux or those kind of, old time country singers, George Strait, Toby Keith, all those guys. Right. So, and then, like we used to race in Casper, Wyoming, but a lot of we don't go south anymore. It's probably been 15 years, I guess, since there's a wagon race south of the border, but you always wish and hope maybe one day you could go back and relive that. I know a lot of the rodeo grounds have changed and things have changed, and they'll never be the same, but they're, a lot of my fond memories of growing up as a kid and out riding and getting out in front of the crowds, and you're just doing a job and performing, and you kind of don't really see it or hear it until, maybe you grow up and look back and appreciate it more, right?
Tell me how the races in the US worked, and specifically Cheyenne. Was it a stop on the WPCA tour, or how did it happen, and why did it go away, and where all did you guys go? I remember hearing about something in Vegas at one point, for an event in Vegas, maybe, but tell me the story. I don't know the history.
Yeah, so Cheyenne was more set up as just a standalone show. It wasn't a point show, so the standings didn't count. So some of the drivers chose to go and some chose to stay home. Dad and Grandpa both would go, and then Dad would usually drive 2 outfits there. At the time, the dollar was 65 cents. Diesel was 50 cents a gallon. It was cheap, right, to go down, and then you'd come back and convert that money over, and you could win 10, 15 grand American, and then you convert it over, and you got 20, 25,000 in prize money, right? And it was just one of those stops that it was right after the Calgary Stampede. We'd typically stay Monday after Calgary, and then we'd load up at night, and our first jaunt, we'd pretty well drive all night. I can't remember the stops where we used to stop going down there, but
probably Dillon, Montana.
Yeah.
Then you probably get to Cheyenne the next day, essentially, if you're going overnight.
It was 2.5 days to get there. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we would only travel 8 or 9 hours, and then we'd let the horse out to eat and water and move around. We'd get down there, it was kind of our vacation show, I want to say, because it was such, the American show. It was the Cheyenne Frontier Days. It was the daddy of them all type of thing, right? So, and we'd race every night, and the barns were close. You could hear whoever the entertainer was for the night, and we were kind of really just a warm-up entertainment for the crowd before they rolled out, Toby Keith or Alabama or whatever, right? Those big names, and the crowd would get kind of rocking, and then they'd have a they'd have a freestyle bullfight just to chew up a little more time, and then the stage was there, all the screens were set up, and it was pumping, and we'd be finishing chores, and the bands were playing, and they're probably maybe a quarter mile away, but you could usually hear them clear as day. And one of the other cool things with Cheyenne, they had a big air show there. So one of the big air bases for Wyoming was in Cheyenne, and they had the big Hercs flying over and all these jets and all these planes, and the airport was right next to the rodeo grounds. It was right close, so they were shaking the campers and the horses. It was something to get used to, right? But we'd get up early. By 6 you were doing chores, and by 9 it was usually 90 degrees. By a lot of the days during the Cheyenne Frontier Days, it was 100, 105 at times. So you'd get back down to 95 or 98, and you felt, oh, this is nice. It's pretty cool today. But yeah, it was kind of our hot vacation with wagon racing. So,
and there were a few other U.S. stops, but they were all that kind of exhibition essentially? Like,
yeah, pretty well.
How did they even get those on the schedule? How did that even come about?
It was organized by Wagon Drivers typically. Like that, the one year that they had races in Vegas, it was organized by Buddy and Kelly. And then at the time, the WPCA was supposed to go, and there was some conflict and bickering and this and that. And they chose to take the CPCA because the WPCA kind of boycotted it. A lot of politics involved. The one thing with Wagon Drivers, and I've always called them out, and a lot of them are my friends, is they're always so worried about who's going to make money and who's going to run the show or who's in charge. And to me, it never mattered as much because, somebody should own the wagon racing and should make it, like a PBR, make it like a NASCAR. Probably never ever be that big, but develop it in a sense and own it as a business and be successful and make it grow, right? And they would never, in the instance of Vegas, Buddy and Kelly, they're worried about those guys making money, and why are they doing this? And they're all just worried about it, right? And I'm like, shut up, let's go down there and race and have some fun and do something different. Get out of High River or Dawson Creek. Let's go to Vegas. Like, come on.
Make it NASCAR. Well, and it's funny you mentioned NASCAR because the guy we had on the show last, Jeff Hammond, is a former crew chief, like won the Daytona 500, and he talked about Chuckwagon Racing and being a fan, which was pretty interesting. He said, well, we might have to get you guys hooked up because he talked about how he thought that he could speed up a wagon. So I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but it might.
I have some ideas. I maybe have the backing financially to do it. I just need to find somebody that has the technology. So
yeah,
he's the guy. He's a legend, man.
Yeah, he might have some ideas. I don't know.
One thing I was wondering, like talking about all this stuff, like why has Chuckwagon Racing never taken off in the US? Like why is it just like nobody's been doing it, or just like a Canadian thing, or why we don't see more of it down there?
I think it's solely based on the fact that somebody doesn't own the sport. We're like one step above a carny, and I always we have tents on our liners where they're turned into barns for the horses, and we set up and jump from town to town. And we think we shouldn't have to work all year, and we like a lot of wagon drivers think they should be able to survive off of wagon racing and not have to do anything else for the rest of the year, and that's just not the case, right? So, and then it comes back to the politics, and there's a board of directors, and then there's driver directors, and then there's all these people making decisions, and every year they're changing rules and tweaking stuff or changing the format of the wagon racing, and a lot of it's relevant because sport of wagon racing is like 70 years old, and it's been all done 3 or 4 times over, and you guys keep switching the same thing back and forth. The biggest thing that, like any sport, rodeo, wagons, NASCAR, it's money, it's entertainment, it's sponsorship, and it's typically a good economy that supports it, right? So get away from trying to change the format to attract spectators and make it bigger. Go to, if you had 3 county fairs in the fall that we could go to that had racetracks, I think it would be pretty successful because the people there are farm, ranch, rodeo related people. And I think with, the first night of racing, the stands might be half full or quarter full, but if we get to the 4th night, I bet you it's packed and they're going to be asking for it to come back.
One of the cool things I think about Chuckwagon Racing is you don't, it's so simple in a sense that it's just a race of 4 wagons. Like someone's going to win every time. So it's easy for folks who aren't like directly Western people to be a fan of it. That's like living in Calgary. I've lived in the city now for the past 6 years. And that's why people love the Stampede Chuckwagon Racing, is because Jimmy, who works for TransCanada downtown, can wander down the chuck wagons with his buddies and bet toonies all night, and they know what's going to happen. Where I think that's where rodeo kind of lacks. It's a lot harder to follow if you're not like a full-time fan, whereas being a part-time wagon fan, you can still understand what's going on.
Yeah, there's the 10 names that are familiar, and there's maybe the 10 bottom guys that kind of switch in and out, but for the most part, it's there's kind of a camaraderie around wagons, and once you get a sponsorship or a few different sponsors, and it becomes your team and like your pit crew, and they come back to the barns, and then they get to see the horses and drink some beer and get some shit on their boots, and just kind of live the life. And then
part
you
of it.
get some guys that they want to come help you. They don't want to go sit in the grandstand. Hey, can we come and like walk a horse, help cool a horse out, or can we come clean stalls in the morning? You're like, yeah, have at her. Like we started at 6:30, and then they're usually hungover, puking in the stall, but they show up.
Well, it's pretty cool because like would have been, what was it, 2019, Teddy, the Posbon Foundation or PBR had bought a Chuckwagon.
I think
2019, 18 or 19. But so that was like kind of my first experience hanging out in that scenario on being able to be as a sponsor, like in that area. And it was really cool. Like there's so much hospitality around it. And like the one thing to give kudos to the Wagon Drivers, you guys do a really good job of including everybody, making them feel part of, like you said, giving the opportunities to like lead a horse or even just sit and have a bullshit and a beer with somebody. Like that goes such a long way, especially with those folks who aren't Western people, like who are like, it's so cool because they don't get to do it every day. So it's kind of, it makes them feel special by being able to interact and hang out and be like in the action.
Especially if you can get them down with their kids and their family, and it becomes an experience that the kids remember and talk about. Like we all enjoy going to a hockey game, but if you give a kid a carrot and let them feed it to a horse and maybe get in there and let them brush it and, whatever, right? And they're city kids and they've never done it before. I think that sticks a little bit more than going to the hockey game and eating a hot dog type of thing. But, it's a true spectator sport. It's adrenaline based, it's speed, in a way, nobody likes to see crashing and banging and any injuries, whether it's to horse or to man, but it's action. People go to NASCAR. What do they want to see, or they're hoping to see? They want to see somebody pile up.
Same as the bull ride. Those people get wrecked out.
Yeah, and they want to see the guy get up and wave to the crowd after, but they want to see fenders flying or some snot flying, and
yeah.
That type of thing, right? So,
I think one thing that gets really overlooked though too, and maybe from like the non-Western crowd where Wagon gets a bad rap, is like you guys truly care about your horses and the safety of it and the safety of other drivers and stuff. You're not just going out there and being reckless and running 4 wagons down the track and being wild. But you like there's a method to the madness, and you guys truly care about, give a shit about your animals. Without them, you have nothing, right?
Yeah. So like, I guess an analogy I like to use is like you get a Johnny Goudreau or a McDavid, and if that's a horse and that horse gets hurt, like those are hard or impossible to replace, right? So they're like our kids. I got 25 kids this spring that I'm training, and I've got them on a nutrition program, I got them on a fitness program, and I'm putting them in the barn and got them a vet that takes care of them if there's any issues or if they need any maintenance or help or whatever, right? So when you have a group of superstars and you're competitive and something happens, and say a heart attack, and just like a human, heart attacks are unpredictable. They could happen in the pasture, they could happen to me while I'm having a shower and I'm done, right? Or could happen in the race, and it's terrible. Nobody likes it, but the reality of the sport is people die, horses die, and it's not what we want, but we try to take the precautions by pre-vet inspections and fitness and making sure horses are ready to go. And we never hook or race a horse that has the potential of being injured prior to going out, because we want to be successful, right? So anyways, there's a lot of there's a group of people, tree huggers, that really drive the sport down into the ground, or try to. I guess my hope and prayer is that a lot of the shows, and I think Ponoka is probably the best at it, is they're proud of their heritage. They know what they like and what their people like, and they're proud to host it, and they don't entertain anybody else. They're a group of people that can't be educated, can't be convinced, so you just try to do your best, keep a clean, sharp looking outfit, happy horses and happy family, and just get down the road and put on a good show, right?
You mentioned getting back in this last year, and I'm just thinking about having 25 horses, and you probably still probably got some of the gear, but it's kind of a two or three parts here. But like, I gotta guess that the investment buying somebody else probably got to be like even 25 horses by 10 grand each is 250,000. Like you're a few $100,000 into this thing, buying BJ out and getting going, and you can.
Like starting from scratch in the process, right? You're not even guaranteed to go to Ponoka.
Yeah. She's tough. So
it's a gamble. I called my parents and talked to my mom, and my mom's like, "Oh, I figured you had some unfinished business." And then my dad, he's like, "You're retarded." But anyways, all in good humor. You look back and you're, man, it was a lot of work, and hopefully I can keep up to it, or I can perform, get that work done. And, I'm in better shape probably than I've ever been in the last 10, 12 years. And that helps. And you're making a lot of miles out there, walking around, catching horses, driving, harnessing, moving feed, whatever. Right. And, but yeah, it's an investment. It's a risk. But I kind of woke up one day and was like, might as well do what you love, because one day you might wake up dead and you never did it. Right. So go do it. Kind of got a 5-year plan, let it roll and see what happens. And then, I don't know. I got some young kids, so if they get an opportunity to grow up like I did, I think a little bit of work ethic and that social skills, it's a good investment. And if we can have a little fun in the time being, then perfect. Right.
So going further into that, you've got all the horses. I think I got to ask about the sponsor side of things here for a bit, and just give us a little bit of info on that and who you got riding with you this year that way.
Who are your interns?
So yeah, we'll just start with Grand Prairie as the first show. I talked to Cole Withers. He has Cinch Oilfield Hauling. His dad was Neil Withers, Withers Trucking back in the day. So I think he had sold in the early 2000s, somewhere's there. And then Cole set up a business. Anyways, he was doing good. He's got probably 30, 40 trucks. He moves rigs and oil field service stuff, and, cats, hose, anything kind of bigger iron like that, specialized oil field hauling. It was funny how it happened and how it all worked out, but he called around looking for a couple sponsors for other guys and just trying to help other guys out. And then we got to the tarp sale, and he was joking. He's like, you know what? Let's keep these guys for us, and we'll put a group together. So then as the sale started, I was like the last one on the list. And anyhow, they got drinking and they're joking, they're having fun. They're like, you know what, we need publicity. We need to be the highest bidder at the sale. So these guys are sitting at the same table, and I didn't know this was going on. So I get up on stage. Well, they had split in the room and they're bidding against each other to drive the price up, and they got a few drinks in and they're having fun. And anyways, we end up being high seller, and they're all happy and high-fiving each other. And at the time, I really wasn't sure what was going on, but you're thankful, right? Because that's all the support that they give you. And the second group is KDAC Energy. They're based out of Grand Prairie, and they're like a oil field fabricating company and maintenance company. They do some integrity digs and pipelining, and they build mods, and so all the piping and the valve setups and the plants, basically, that's what they build and engineer. And then Max Fuel is basically the big Petro Pass up in Grand Prairie as well. So that's their trio. They're gonna set up a tent and do some barbecuing, and they bring some clients down to the barns and have some drinks, have some fun. And that's basically the group for Grand Prairie. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to do Dawson Creek as well. So that's kind of got the north covered. And from there we come to Bonnyville. So my cousin and his partners, they have 3 locations. They're accountants, suit and tie, but he grew up helping grandpa out in a bit. And they're going to be my sponsor for Bonnyville. So that's kind of nice. It'll be kind of a family affair. And my official retirement kind of race weekend was in Bonnyville. I'd sold out in Calgary, and then when I come to Bonnyville, Kirk Sutherland and Mitch Sutherland, they just lent me some horses to race for the weekend, and where they did a big to do there for me. And so, anyways, I kind of better have my hammer cocked and do good in my hometown, right? So, and then from there we go down to Medicine Hat. Same thing, kind of a group of guys that sponsored me my last year, and Tornado Projects, and guys that I'd worked with in the oil patch actually. And I called them, and it was like, yeah, we're super busy. Whatever you need, just let us know. We're gonna do it. I'm like, okay, perfect. So, and then we kind of bounce around. High River Strathmore, I think it's going to be Highwood Distillers. We're still negotiating, so if they're listening, hopefully, a little shout out. So that relationship actually goes back to my first year on the tour, and that's like going on 25 years, I guess, of running their tarp and doing stuff like social media wise. We went and had a tour of their distillery and ate some Jello shots and drank some whiskey out of their whiskey warehouse and stuff like that. Just, it was kind of fun, right? And I don't know, just old sponsors and people you've stayed in touch with, and they've enjoyed it, so they just continue to kind of team up with you and carry on, right?
I was just gonna go back to the Grand Prairie being the high selling tarp, and that's like your first race back. How much pressure is on you to do good in your first one back, being the high selling?
Yeah, there's
what was the reception from the other guys? Like, you've been out of the game for a while now, and then you just roll back on the scene. You're the high selling tarp at the auction. I
think a lot of them are used to my antics, I guess. And, I'm sure you got to understand with Grand Prairie, there's the Sutherlands, and then there's a lot of wagon drivers up there, right? Huey Sinclair, he's retired now, and guys from all around there that have, it's kind of probably I want to say the wagon capital of Alberta.
Love it. The people love it there, man. Like, I worked TP Creek last year, and it's people love the wagons more than the rodeo. And even like when we did Grand Prairie a few years ago, Teddy and I, like, they fucking love it, which is like, it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah. So I kind of come into somebody else's stomping grounds and wrangled up some of their own backyard sponsors and ended up being the high seller. So, but that's to the help of, Cole and Cinch Oilfield and just kind of getting a group of people together.
Do you have to pay a cut to the Sutherland Mafia when you go to Grand Prairie?
We didn't cross that the river there. What's the big bridge there, just outside of Grand Prairie?
Is it Peace River?
Peace River. As soon as
is it Dunvegan or whatever it's called? Dunvegan Valley? Is that the one you're thinking of? In the north? Is that north? Okay,
that's north. Wrong.
I don't know.
It's a mean
river. Wrong spot.
Yeah, it's a mean climb with a liner load of horses when you come out of the bottom of that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where was I gonna go? I'm just gonna throw a word out there for Wacey here, and you can go with it as you wish. But we're talking about we created a term. I don't know if it's been thought up before, but we were driving through Grand Prairie through the wagon barns. And Wacey and I don't know who came up with it, but we called it Chucklandia for a while. We weren't so sure, but Wacey, you might have to describe to Ray what your thoughts are.
It's actually the you described it already, Ray, when you mentioned like how you guys are kind of like carnies and just you have your tent trailer set up and stuff, which is funny. And then it just like they were just driving through and like everybody just like looking at us. It just kind of had like Hills Have Eyes vibe of like Chucklandia.
You're right.
It makes me laugh.
Honestly, it's kind of a tight family back there. So if there's trucks cruising around that people don't know, they're kind of like looking like, who's that? Or
there's shirtless kids running around with missing teeth just staring you down. It's like I'm
or just in their diapers or
laying
in a puddle just drinking.
That's what I just living. It's so funny. Oh, that was like, and every day it was the same thing. We drive the truck to the same road, same area, and we just get this. Everybody just be staring us down every time. It's like your daily trip through Chucklandia.
Yeah, it was one of two things. Those guys are lost, or they're gonna steal something tonight when we go to sleep.
I didn't think we were like out of place,
rough looking. But
But what was it? Oh, then we didn't know very many folks, but then Wacey, you played with Timbo, and he was sitting there with his shirt off, just hanging out. Like,
yeah, it's my buddy Tim Martin works for Jason Glass a lot.
Yeah.
He's a big, and if you know him, he's to see him, he's like 6'8", like shredded.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Yeah. But he's like the most unbelievable guy, like, super nice. Like, he's a big teddy bear. But it was funny at Stampede one year, he was cruising around in the barns with his shirt off, and one of our buddies caught a picture of him. I was like, yeah, I know that guy. He's an absolute weapon. Yeah, he's shredded. And he fits right in Chucklandia, old Timmy.
Just that big Amazon man that's towers over everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody's bodyguard.
Yeah, he's good.
I gotta ask, like, what are you most looking forward to getting back at it, Ray? Like,
second part to it, I can add to your question because it's kind of the same track here.
So add to it, but then like after, like, getting back to it's part of it, but like, did you get bored fishing and hanging out and, you know, doing other shit? Like, you're like, this is cool, like camping and hanging out, but like, I miss wagon, miss driving.
I miss Chucklandia.
Yeah, like, I guess for me it takes too long to get good at something anymore. So I team roped on and off. I team roped as a kid quite a bit till I was probably 14 or 15 at my grandpa's riding arena. Then we got our own riding arena. I got back roping and, you know, spent 4 or 5 years at that. And I was hit and miss or this and that, whatever, but just never replaced it, right? Never found that fix or that, I don't know, whatever wagon racing is.
Never got good at golf.
I just couldn't replace it. I couldn't find something. And then I guess that's an addiction, or that's another problem that I'll have to deal with maybe again later in my life. But it's probably just as cheap to do coke as run a wagon. But anyways, that's kind of
right. You're not right.
One of my other jokes is, either you're carny or the cost of wagon racing. But anyways, it's just the lifestyle. It's like ranching or farming. You can't. I don't know. You can't replace it.
Well, and so, like, building off of that a little bit, what are some of your goals heading into the new season? Like, you got a new outfit, got some money with your tarp auction selling, and some big events coming, and some stuff on the line, like being able to get into Ponoka and those bigger shows. So, kind of, what are the goals for 2022?
There's only one goal, and it's consistency. That's it. If you're consistent, the rest will fall into place. You got to be smart. And wagon drivers kind of cringe when I say this, but the competition isn't as tough as it was when I raced, 15. When I kind of in the middle of my career, was really tough, right? Like, there's Neil Walgenbaugh, Jerry Bremner, Reg Johnstone, Hugh Sinclair, Grand Prophet. Kelly Sutherland's gone now. Kirk is kind of on his way out. This is his last year too. There's guys that have been tough, and that's who I grew up around. And that being said, there's guys that are tough now that weren't tough then, and they've kind of replaced them, but the depth isn't there as much anymore. So I guess it's kind of a rebuild in a whole as a sport, because there's new young kids coming up, Tough Drager, Cruz Benzmiller, guys that are, tough as Kelly Sutherland's grandson, right? So
he's awesome. I met him in TP Creek. He's an unreal kid.
Those two kids are like true gentlemen to the sport, and that's what's going to save the sport and take it to the next level. And I'm maybe just kind of happy to be a part of it, but I want them to learn how I learned. And the sport's changed a bit from when I got tough and I was 22, 23 years old, and you get hooked with Reg and Kelly and those guys. There's inches, and you raced with inches in between you, and those were the bump and grind days and the kind of the battle it out. And then Calgary kind of got a hold of the rules and didn't want us to be so competitive, and so trying to just make it safer, which I understand, and everybody's kind of adapted to, and we run a little bit 2 feet in between us now, and a little bit off the rail, and we're not squeezing guys in a hole or down on the rail and stuff like that. So I struggled with the change. I'm probably the first to admit it, because I like running tough. I like bumping and grinding, and I had a thing. It was funny. Me and Kelly had a thing, and we were fierce competitors, and I always wanted to be as good and consistent as him. Anyways, it's just something about when we got hooked together. Spokes were gonna fly, or we were gonna battle it out, right? So. But the new group of kids coming up, they've got generations, 3 or 4 generations in behind them that they've grew up watching and learning from. So they're 8 pegs above, a lot of kids that are starting, right? Or the pony wagon drivers that are coming over and starting. So it's going to be good at, the sport's going to stay consistent. I think it's going to grow the next few years if the economy can, stay where it's at with oil and gas. That's kind of what really fuels us. When there's a little bit of that play money around, the oil boys like to go out and get a wagon and race and be competitive and buy some horses, and really kind of they get addicted to it. So I see that coming and happening. You just need our governments to, kind of push the economy to grow versus what they've been doing the last couple of years with COVID and everything.
I got a couple things before we wrap it up. I don't want to keep you too long here this evening, but you mentioned Calgary. Let's get right to it. What do you? I know I heard different things about what there might have been issue with there at some point. I don't know what the story was. You can go into it or not, but we got to talk about the 3 wagons this year and the 27 guys instead of 36 a little bit. You can take it as you want, but what do you got to say there?
Yeah, it's kind of like phase 2 of them reducing the risk, I want to say. And I understand, and a lot of people don't like change, and I didn't like change when they got rid of the 4 outriders, because, there was just something about watching a 4 wagon race with 4 outriders behind every wagon. It was like a wall of ants coming out of out of the infield. It just horses everywhere, it's guys everywhere. And you had to be good. You had to be competitive and tough. And so they went down to 2 outriders. And then this is kind of stage 2 of them basically reducing the amount of horses on the track, will reduce the risk of any injuries or any, so they've went from 36 guys to 27. It's going to be tough to be entertaining on that big track, because they don't realize what a 3 wagon race is. And there's not many shows that are 3 wagon races for us anymore, but the guys on barrel 1 and 2, they're going to turn really hard and they're going to compete right to the finish line. And the guy on barrel 3 is going to tuck and follow. And it's going to be that race, every race for 9 races for 10 nights. And that's all you're going to see, where in a traditional 4 wagon race, typically the guy on barrel 4, he's going to try to shoot for the engine and no turn everybody. 50% of the time he'll get them. And then barrel 1 and 2 are always right there. And then barrel 3, he usually tucks in behind. He sits and waits till the home stretch, and then he'll make a run at him. So a lot of times there's always 4 wagons at the finish line, or 3 for sure. And it's just taken 25% of the action out of the race. And for Calgary, the big event and the big, for the broadcast team even, and the stuff that is going to entertain the crowd, it's not there as much. But I'm it might fool me, right? But 3 wagon races just aren't as entertaining. But that's the route they wanted to go, and I think they'll put a show on like they always do, and there's good prize money there, and they had a successful tarp sale, and I still want to run at the Calgary Stampede. I love, because I grew up there. There's so many memories, and then there's just something about rolling onto that track and this, the grandstand and the stadium, how it's all set up, and it just gets you going. Like, it's something to live for, right? So that's where everybody wants to go. They want to be on TV and get the big sponsors, and I don't know. I just spent 30 years there, and you still want to be there, right? So, but it goes back to what I said, is people struggle with change, and we as wagon drivers, we know what wagon racing is, and we struggle with it, but we're willing to continue on because we want the sport to be successful, and we want to be able to continue to do it. So
you also had to, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had to pay some fines for you to be able to even come back. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I retired and left Calgary, I'll put a big write up in the newspaper, and basically kind of called Calgary out and told them the changes that they were doing weren't for the best. And anyhow, all the stuff that I talked about has happened since, and I was right, and it cost me a little bit of money. But I never, at the time I did it because I never thought I was going to come back. So yeah, I had some fines. There's a little bit of money and some crow to eat, to get back in, to be a outstanding member, I guess, again, and is what it is. But my point was made, and a lot of the wagon drivers, well, majority of them agreed with me. Just, you can't voice your opinion to that crowd because you kind of get blackballed. So I did, and I took the beating, and I always tried to stand up for the sport and stand up for the guys, and tried to get it to grow, and tried to have our own thing, right? And people just, there's enough wagon drivers that they can never agree on anything. So that's kind of the second biggest thing that's holding them back, is they can never come together as a group, right? So it's no different than all the bull riders in Canada, or or all the rodeo as a whole. They want this one, these guys want that. The barrel racers want it a foot deep, and the stock contractors want it kind of hard because their horses buck better. And anyways, you can't.
You guys need it hard to be able to turn and get a little bit of slide on the ground. Like you can't have it deep. It'll fuck things up pretty royally.
Yeah, and wagons have a tendency, if it gets too deep, to just dig in and they flip over versus snapping around the top barrel, right? So a little bit of it's a safety hazard, and it's easier driving when the infield's a little tighter. Like you said, the wagon, your horses can get going quicker. Your wagon will slide around the top, and it just makes a nice smoother turn, right? It's easier driving. You got momentum, and you don't have to go as far past the barrel because if your wagon's going to swing around the barrel, you can turn it tighter, right? Your horses can be tighter. So it's all about seconds or even 10/100ths when it comes to any kind of race.
So you're talking about flipping a wagon, like you got to have some wrecks that shits went sideways out there. You might want to tell people about. Yeah.
1 year in Dawson Creek, I fell out of the wagon around the top barrel, the two barrel. Honestly, I'm not really sure what happened. It just kind of happened really quick, and I was in the dirt, and my wagon was going to the track, and then Chance Vegan jumped in my wagon after the race, and he was out riding at the time, and he crawled out, jumped off his horse onto the hoops, and crawled in through the back and gathered up the reins and pulled them up. So basically saved those horses' lives, because they could have crashed in the fence or piled up or something, right? And there's the odd training incident, nothing really that bad, but a lot of the more elite drivers, I guess, they've been through it so many times that they see it coming long before it happens, and they can get things under control, or the way they train and break horses, they never really have to deal with it because, I don't know, they're just more focused. They have a good routine, they have a good program, and they buy, good quality horses that maybe are bred a little bit better, and they have a mind on them where they want to work for you versus, the frying pan horses that it's just a rodeo or a wreck, really, right?
So you said he jumped in the back. Like, I'm just trying to picture that and feel how that would even work on the back of a horse. Like, how the hell does he get in the wagon? I thought he would have jumped in on the, like, up by the front wheel and had kind of jumped right on the box there, but you said he went in the back. Like, how do you even get in there?
It's actually, I've never done it. I don't know if I ever could really do it. I'm kind of a bigger guy, but basically you're right up beside the back wheel and you just reach over and kind of just like a steer wrestler, you're reaching for the horns, but you reach for those hoops and you get a hold of them hoops, and then you just pull yourself off the horse and into the back. It's one pretty smooth transition, and there's only a few guys that ever do it, right? That are out there outriding, and by rights, that's the purpose of an outrider, is for safety. So they're out there to help you. They get your wagon parked and stopped in the barrels, and then they load the stove in the back, which is like the old school pack up camp, kind of analogy, and then the race is on, right? So I've had other issues too. I had a line caught. We were racing in Lethbridge. This was probably 2002, 2003. Anyways, had a line hooked and I couldn't turn them left, which when you go around the track, there's 4 left-hand turns, right? So I couldn't pull them down. As much as I had like 2 hands on those lines, I couldn't get them to come down. And Chance Vegan again at the time, he was riding for Tyler Helmig and he was going by me and I was having troubles and I was able to get his attention and he figured out what was going on and he rode up and grabbed my lead team and actually held him down to the inside rail all the way around the track until after the race till we got him stopped. Otherwise, like there was a few times going around the second turn where I was looking at the outside fence and I was trying to decide, okay, when am I going to hit the fence and when am I going to jump in the bottom of the box? So a lot of times the safest spot is, if you're going to wreck, is to jump down in the bottom of the box and just lean up against the side of the box, right? And you're going to get bounced around, but you're not actually going to get kind of catapulted out of the wagon, right? So it was kind of slow motion, but those thoughts are going through your head, and I'd watched Dallas Dorchester in the late 90s or mid 90s. He had a accident too, and anyways in Calgary, and he had jumped down in the bottom of the box. So as a kid, you're watching how these old school boys protected themselves or went and got through different situations, and stuck with me. So the importance of outriders, especially when you shrink them down from 4 to 2, taking a part of your rescue team out on the track, and or guys that know how to get you out of a situation, or if you do wreck and get in a pile, there's help there on the ground to get the horses up and get them to safety, right? Basically. So that's kind of my I guess conflict with it when they went from 4 to 2,
but everywhere is 2 now, is it not? Like,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
For close to probably 10 or 15 years. Yeah.
And is that like, there's still 8 guys out there for 4 wagons. The chances are you're not going to have all 4 getting a jam. So is 8 sufficient, or is it, do you think?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay?
Yeah. It's just not as entertaining, and
fair enough.
It's old school. I like that stuff. Right. So this last year, actually, their Lloydminster put on a show, which is called the North American Chuckwagon Championship. So NACC, it's on during the same time as the Calgary Stampede this year. They did a reenactment. So they had Ray Mitzwing and Brian Labakane come out of retirement, and they're in their 70s, and we did the 4 outrider setup on both outfits, and I was actually asked to outride, so I did, and there was a bunch of old guys there. It was the geriatric race. I made fun of everybody, but we all come out of retirement and threw the 10 pegs in the Stovin, and it's kind of weird because there's kids that are like the good outriders now that you look kind of, as a wagon driver, you hope to get and hope that they ride for you because they're really good, right? And they're at the fence, they're like, hey, we're gonna watch this is cool, like we've never got to do this. And I'm like, you kind of forget, right? Like these kids are 22 and I've been around the sport longer than
they've been alive.
Yeah. So, not to date myself, but anyways, yeah. So it was a real crowd pleaser, and that was another reason the sport kind of sucked me back in. I did the old fogey race, and then halfway through the NACC, Chance was missing an outrider, so he asked me to outride, and I'm like, oh, like holy cow, Chance! Like I haven't rode in a competitive race for 15 years. Oh, you'll be fine. Like get out there. So okay, whatever. And anyways, rode a couple heats, or rode for him, and then all of a sudden, a couple nights later, I had 3 or 4 races, and then ended up going down to Strathmore, which was a WPCA show, and I'm famous for getting in trouble, but anyways, I'm standing at the fence by the outriders and watching the races, and I was there helping Chance Flat again, and Ryan McNeil, they call him Mad Dog, he comes off the track and he pulled his groin for the 45th time. And I was bugging because every year he seems to pull his groin, so he's laying in the ground there, and there's a bunch of kids that didn't have much experience holding leaders, and there wasn't very many outriders last summer because of COVID and it not knowing if they were actually going to race. And anyhow, one of them piped up and said, "Croteau, get your shit on, let's go." So I got to ride for my cousin, like Chance Vegan, and I got in trouble because I didn't have I wasn't a member and I still had outstanding fines, and all of a sudden here comes Rae Croteau rolling out into the infield with his cowboy hat on and a whip in his pocket, and he's holding leaders for his cousin on barrel one, and then there's a big fight that night, or just a big conflict. Everybody, because Chance had actually run day money that night, like to be first, but his other outrider was late, and I guess they didn't feel that I should have been out there. I should have had a membership and should have paid my fines before I got out there. But the way I looked at it was I was experienced. I wasn't going to put a kid into a situation where, maybe they didn't know what they're doing or they're comfortable doing it. And what if they would have got hurt? So whatever. I took the rap. I had, I made a good jump and rode a real nice old gritty horse. And thank God I looked amazing out there, and nobody knew any different.
You should have told Les to not say anything. You might have got away with it.
Well, I think who noticed it was Billy Melville, because
Billy.
Yeah, old Billy. Had my old race hat on, and I kind of went up to the buck and shoots and parked by Norm and Judy Cuthbertson were sitting on one of the buck and shoots there watching the races, and I rode up there and they were kind of looking at me like I was on glue or something. But anyways, I got to get out there and show them how it's done, and knock on wood, the old fart didn't screw up and made her out of there and caught a fast wagon.
So I guess one more thing. So I remember hearing a story about Curtis Glencross signing his big contract with the Flames at the Ponoka Stampede, and I think you can tell us a bit more about that and about your guys' friendship over the years. And we see him in the wagon box during Calgary before, and a number like Ponoka, Strathmore, a number of the different spots. But tell us about Glennie a little bit and that July 1st UFA deal in Ponoka.
Yeah, so there's actually a couple funny stories with me and him and Ponoka Stampede. I don't know what it is with that place, but I'll just start with the contract. I'd had a terrible Ponoka Stampede, and I was some sour, and he's like, "Hey, races are over." We raced in the afternoon, like the finals were in the afternoon for the wagons, right? So he's like, "Okay, we need to run to the rodeo office. They're gonna send my contract, fax it there, and they're gonna print it off, and then we got to sign it. You got to be my witness." I'm like, "Can we do this tomorrow? Like, I'm in a shitty mood. I'm sitting here on the ramp doing chores and drinking a beer." He's like, no, like this has to be done right now. So, fuck, okay, whatever. We get on the quad, rip to the rodeo office. Then all of a sudden it starts to clue in, right? Like, I'm like, okay, this is like a 5 or 6 year deal for $3.5 million a year, and I get to be the witness. Like, well, that's kind of cool, like, and I'm thinking, like, man, Rae, you're such a jackass. You didn't even want to come and do it. Like, unreal, right? So yeah, I got a picture holding his contract up, and I got my signature on there. And it was a good experience, and able to celebrate with him. He spent a lot of time. So I met him through the Christensen. So Cam Christensen, they're from Drumheller, and they own Canalta Hotels, and they own a bunch of A&Ws. They own a couple.
Boston Pizza.
Yeah.
They're also partners with Dustin Edwards on Barney's Adventure Park.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they are entrepreneurs, and at the time they were my sponsor for the Calgary Stampede, and so they were it was Ramada Inn and Suites. They were a partner in for, I think, Western Canada, and they'd put all the locations in, and each location had a night, and that's where I met Curtis. So one of the nights, Blair Christensen had brought a bunch of buddies down. Like, there's probably 25 of these guys that were, 21 years old and ready to rip and roar and party. And Curtis was there that night. So I actually didn't really remember meeting him. And then a couple of weeks later, he showed up in Strathmore, and he had one of his buddies there that he played hockey with, Coatsy. He's from, well, they both played in Brooks. Yeah. So Brooks was Coatsy was his protector, I guess. Anyhow, they showed up in Strathmore. We hung out a bit and got to know each other a little bit more. And then the following weekend, so I won Strathmore. The following weekend, we went to Drumheller, and we were kind of batching that weekend. So we had partied like we were in grade 11 and went to the dance and ended up winning that show too. So from there on, he figured he was my lucky charm, and he come to a lot of wagon races, right? And you know, he's playing for Syracuse Crunch, and he's, you know, trying to make it to the NHL. And then he got drafted, or didn't get drafted, got signed by Anaheim and got called up, and then played a few games there. And that was I think it was a lockout year. So him and Getzlaff and Perry were on the line, and those two were feeding it to Kurt, and Kurt had more points than Getzlaff and Perry in the preseason games. And then they got locked out, but you know, they played on the line together, and that's pretty easy to play with those two guys. And so then Curtis got sent back down after the lockout, got called up again. And then from there, they traded him to Columbus. So we went down and seen him in Columbus and toured around and watched a few games. And it was kind of our winter ritual was wherever he was playing, we'd maybe pick a different city or go to, you know, Calgary or Edmonton or Columbus or wherever he was. And, you know, spend a few days, watch a couple games, and then tour around, right? So one year during the Olympic or All-Star break, he had flown up to Edmonton and come to Bonnyville because we had this charity Wagon Drivers versus the radio people to kind of promote Chuckwagon Racing in Bonnyville. So he showed up and dropped the puck, and we partied all weekend. And then we were bugging him. You're going to get traded to the Oilers. And he's like, not a chance. I'm never coming to the Oilers. And then, no shit, like February, whatever it was, he calls me and he's like, guess what? I'm like, what? I got traded. I'm like, where? To the Edmonton Oilers. So it was like all within a month, he was all of a sudden moving back to Alberta and played for the Oilers. And he played with Startini and another kid from St. Paul. Anyways, they made Startini look good, and they were the best fourth line in hockey. And he pumped a bunch of goals on the Flames that year. And then the next year, I think he got signed for just 1 year at Calgary, and then signed a long-term contract. And we've been good buddies, you know, ever since. And one more story for Pinoca. So this is kind of before, I think it was a year we signed his big contract. Anyways, he'd bought this fancy Razor side-by-side Polaris thing, and it'd go mock chicken, right? And we're ripping around, and I'm driving, and he's riding passenger, and I have this brainwave idea that I can go up this dirt hill and like go side hill this side of this dirt hill and then come right back down. And it didn't work out so good. So we went up, and then we rolled this machine over. Oh, no. And I landed on him. And so we crawl out of there. We're like laughing, and I'm like, oh my God, I like wrecked your new machine here. This thing's, you know, 25 grand or whatever. And it wasn't wrecked, but he stands up and he looks at me, and he has a little trickle of blood coming down just from the edge of his ear, right? So I'm like, and he's like, what? And he goes like this, and he pulls it. Well, you can see all the guitar strings and tendons, and, you know, it had ripped. And I'm like, yeah, don't do that. And he's like, what? I'm like, oh, you got just a little cut right there. He's like, what are you talking about? Well, me and him were both deathly scared of his mom, Robin, right? Uh-oh. So we proceed to go back to the camper, and he's like, nobody can find out about this. Like, my fucking mother will kill us. So I said, okay. So we go back, and then his brother-in-law, Kelsey, we found a tube of super glue, and we just glued his ear back where it was supposed to be and washed it up, and she never found out. So
no way.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Yeah. We were all scared of Robin.
Holy. Okay, I got one more thing. You gotta explain to folks what it's like to drive a wagon. Like, and Wacey and I haven't been in one yet and been like really seen it. And I'm curious. Sometime I know you sold one at an auction, actually. So my friend Riley Jones called me yesterday and said you guys should get Rae on the show. And then I'm like, that's a fucking good idea. It's been a long time. I think we've talked about it before. I just never got it done. You've been on my list for a long time. But I was like, that's a fucking good idea. So I sent you a message and we got her lined up. But Riley's mom put on a barrel race, a fundraiser for ALS, and you put a ride in the Chuckwagon in the race. So so you got to tell folks what it's like, and I got to see it someday. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like honestly, if you guys are ever around wherever we are, and just come find me or let me know before, and I'll say, like if you're there for the weekend, there'll be a morning where we're gonna hook and practice or train some new ones, or they got to be exercised if they're not in a race, right? So, but for somebody that's not cowboy and from the city, like your senses are on high alert because there's noises and things are moving and rattling, and you can feel it from your toes up through your ankles into your knees into your whole body, right? Because you're in a wooden wagon that you'd think is kind of 100
wheel might fall off.
Yeah, like what, this thing's made out of wood. Why are we out here going 60 kilometers an hour, right? So it's impressive, to be honest. And you probably need to do it a couple times to really, the first time can be overwhelming. It's kind of like skydiving. And then the second time is where you open your eyes and you kind of absorb it, right? And pay attention to stuff. And, but yeah, the power of 4 thoroughbred horses and I get determination to do what they love, and that's run. And especially if you get to go in an outfit that really works and really turns, and you get that feeling from the barrels, that's the funnest part. Once you hit the track, a lot of the strategy is pretty basic in a race. So, but yeah, she was, and I love donating stuff like this, and it's an experience that people remember their whole life. But I'm kind of on edge too when I do it, because things can happen, right? So there's a potential you might get hurt. There's a potential a horse might get hurt. You just got to know this stuff. And but the odds are very low. Just know that there is an odd. And for some reason, whenever you take a sponsor or a fan or somebody for a wagon ride, that's always when it happens. So I don't know why, but that's just when it happens. So yeah, it's a good feeling. I don't know. It's just something, especially if you can get up in the wagon seat and be, where the mud's hitting you in the face, and I don't know. It's just the
whole experience.
Yeah, the energy coming through the lines, and if that you've spent so much time, especially for a wagon driver, you spend so much time with these horses, and when they finally click and they perform perfect, and you beat the guys you're hooked against, or you're that top time on the night, that sense of satisfaction or completion, or I don't know what it is, but it just makes you feel whole and makes you, you're successful, right? And anybody wants to be successful in life, doesn't matter what you do. So if that's how I get it, or how somebody else gets it in a day job and moving up the ladder, then same thing, right? But
what's the start like? That's got to be it's a pretty quick acceleration, but you're also making the turns, and then you really can whip around the second, the bottom barrel getting on the track. Like, that's probably
yeah. So if there are people riding with me, I tell them to lean on the hoops, like just basically lean against the hoops, because if you're leaning ahead, just standing there, and those horses really punch it, they're going to throw you back into the hoops, and you're going to like hit them, right? So
fall down.
Just basically brace yourself, and when you go to the top and we turn right, whichever direction we're turning, lean that direction, because you want the weight on the inside. And then just enjoy it, and stick your head out and look over the driver and get hit in the face with some dirt, and I don't know. Yeah, just look down at the wheels, different stuff, right?
Dang. Well, I'll be in Grand Prairie, Ponoka, and Strathmore for sure, and not sure where else, but I'll be there the whole time at all those ones.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get you in a GoPro or something and go for
yeah. I think Wacey, you'll be in Ponoka probably a day or two.
I think what we need to do is just get together and do like a whole like day in the life of a wagon driver like vlog style thing and just kind of walk. Cause a lot of people like that's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't know and they don't have access to it. And if we have a platform that we can show some people like how it all works. And then if you cap it off with an actual ride in the wagon, I think it's a good like cherry on top.
Oh, absolutely. And that,
we do that at Pinoca, one of these shows where we'll both be at, and I think we can do a really fun job of it.
Sure.
Somewhere. No. Probably not GP. Let's wait till you get a few.
Let's do it. Well, it's fine for Pinoca's the place to do
Where's
it.
The trust? Where's the trust?
I mean, like, not that I don't trust you. I'm just, you probably want to shake the cobwebs out a little first. But
there's already enough pressure on you in Pinoca or in Grand Prairie as it is. You already got the high selling tarp, so.
Well, Pinoca be a big one, and Strathmore is later in the season, so I probably got a point on Strathmore or something. But anyways,
morning. It regardless, it'll be in the morning, and we kind of have a routine, and nothing really frazzles me. Like we'll be sitting in the barn, and I was kind of lucky because you'd get a bunch of the cowboys that would wander through the barns. And I don't know what it was, but every year the same 3 or 4 bronc riders or a couple bareback riders would always end up in my barn visiting with me, drinking beer. Like I wasn't drinking beer,
drinking your beer.
Yeah, they were drinking my beer, and having fun. And some bull riders, and there'd be 5 or 6 of us sitting there, and me and Curtis, and they're like, "Okay, like you should get ready, or what's going on? Like you should be getting pumped up." And I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm pretty like." Laid back, and you get harnessed and you kind of walk around and make sure shit's good and ready to go. And they're like, geez, I just think you need to get way more pumped up than what you are. Like they couldn't believe, like I'm just sitting on the bales hanging out with them, and they're like, oh man, you got to go out there and perform. I'm like, yeah, like this is normal, don't worry about it.
Was one of the bronc riders Jim Barry? Is that how you guys got to be buddies, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so Jim and I actually
Jim was an outrider too, wasn't
he? He rode and galloped some horses. He never actually rode in a race, and then he rode in the wagon lots, and he spent 2 springs at our place helping us spring train and then working and stuff with me in the oil field in the winter. His dad Urban and my dad had worked together in the oil patch. So one year in Medicine Hat, same thing. It was my first year on the tour. It had rained 7 inches in Medicine Hat, and that entire rodeo grounds was like we were flooded. It was terrible. And so we packed up our horses. We had to run in Lethbridge the next weekend, but we couldn't get into those grounds yet. So we went up to Hannah, out to the farm. My dad said, get a hold of Jim, it's Urban's son, and go out to the farm and just set up there for 4 or 5 days, and you can hook and drive out in the field or do what you got to do, and he'll help you out. So no idea who Jim is, and we load up and head up to Hannah, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere's, where their farm is and their ranch. And anyhow, that's how we met. And then, Jim left the farm for a few years and worked in the oil patch and got riding broncs. He was just riding novice then. And then, we stayed good buddies ever since. And then he qualified for Calgary quite a few years in a row and got the invite. And, it was just his ritual. He'd go to the rodeo, help guys out. And then after the rodeo, he'd come to the barns and help us out. And then have a beer and head home for the night. And then the next day he's in there riding again and come back to the barns. And, we'd go support him and watch him ride. And yeah, just guys like that. And like Chet Johnson and I don't know, there's so bad with names, but a few of like pretty good name guys. And I'm like, what are you doing in my barn? Like I was kind of in awe, kind of, I was a fan of theirs, right? And they're sitting in my barn drinking beer, and I was like, this is cool. That's maybe why I was paying so much attention to it versus, worrying about having to go race a wagon. But yeah.
Wacey, we got one more question.
Right, Ray. The final question of the pod. What is your definition of cowboy shit? We've touched on a lot of cowboy shit throughout this episode, so I mean, we probably could get like a quick summary out of it.
Cowboy shit is like when it's raining and it's snowing and it's blowing, and your routine never changes. You got to get out there, whether it's ranching or farming or training wagon horses. When the environment's the worst it can be, and you get to do what you love, that's cowboy shit.
Well, the Badass Rainbow will be back on the track in Grand Prairie. We'll hopefully he doesn't get canceled. Rae Croteau Jr. is back, and
come back to her, baby.
Yeah, there we go. So we appreciate the time, though. Rae, thanks for doing this with us, and best luck this year, man. Thanks for the bullshit. Thanks for enlightening us about
Chucklandia.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, Chucklandia, anytime, and let's get together and have some more fun. I appreciate it, and I know my sponsors and everybody involved in my team. This is just a little more icing on the cake, and what you guys do, it's good watching, and everybody appreciates it. So good on you guys and all the time and investment you put into it, and we'll be watching.
Well, awesome. Well, I got to thank Les McIntyre helped me out a little bit earlier today, and Billy Melville also. I got some info. I tried Kurt and Jim both. Kurt texted me back, and he said he was busy getting the colony back from Cabo, but Jim, never heard back from Jim, but that's okay. He probably coming back in a while. But, try to get some info. So thanks to those guys for helping me out, and we look forward to seeing you back out there, Rae. Thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for the support. Appreciate it.
They all had their baptism on that half a mile of hell. They feel the horses getting crazy, feel the burning in their soul. When the sun goes down in Calgary and the wagons start to roll, they hear the thunder of the hoofbeats, it's a sound they know so well. As they cast their fate to the fairy and the half a mile of hell. As they cast their fate to the fairy and the half a mile of hell.
Thanks again to Rae Croteau Jr. for joining us this week on the program. We appreciate it. That was a fun chat about the
Nice to learn a little bit more about the ins and outs of the Chuckwagon.
Yeah, and we didn't even get into much of the specificities of it. And
No.
The race. What would you say? I want to say like race specifics or race.
Even some of like the minor details that one might not. Like it's easy to understand the basics of it. Like it's a race, someone's gonna win, but there's also so many little things that a person, if you're not directly connected to it or you don't know, you may not have an idea on how she goes. But
but good show. Appreciate it a lot. The WPCA, World Professional Chuckwagon Association, their season begins in Grand Prairie at the Grand Prairie Stampede, starting that last week in May. I want to say like around the 25th to the 29th.
I think it's something
like
like the 30th is the last day.
I think the 30th is Monday, so
the 29th is the last day. Yeah, you're right.
25th to the 29th. Yeah. So gonna be a good week up there. I'll be heading up on the Tuesday, get her set up and rolling for Wednesday night perf. The wagon's already slack in the daytime. So yeah, I'll be heading up there, and then what? Then Wacey, you're going to PA, and then we got Camrose coming up. Darby's gonna be there covering that event.
I got Kindersley and then Rocky Mountain House. And
are you going to Kindersley still?
Yeah, I got Kindersley. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So that's the weekend off in between. That'll be like the 1st and 2nd of June. Nice.
Yeah.
You're going back there. Remember we hadn't you didn't know the other day. Maybe.
Yeah, they weren't sure. And then they finally got back to me. So it worked out. Works out good.
Oh, sweet. So you're going to Kindersley. Yeah. And then Rocky and Red Deer, and shit's happening now. So but not really. Cause we're just got a couple things on the go here before I don't go anywhere till Grand Prairie, and you already got a couple down before we go to
one.
Yeah.
But it'll be good though, because you do Grand Prairie, and then Red Deer, and then roll right into Ponoka and Calgary. And
then those bull rides. We've got I got to go to Brandon though and Regina before Ponoka.
Yeah, and I got Waskasiu and Slim's house.
Yeah, and Clooney. Yeah, back to back to back. So lots on the go. But man, I got my first round of golf in at Valley Ridge the other day. They had a Club Duster tournament, which was a lot of fun. It's a shamble. Yeah. So I ended up, I woke up in the morning and I knew I had to be over there a decent time, because I think breakfast started at 8:30 and the tournament started at 10. So I was going to leave the house about 8 o'clock and get over there and whatnot. And then I get looking at things and I'm like, I wonder why they never sent me any info on this. And then I wonder why, I wonder when I'm supposed to even show up there. I haven't seen a team. I don't know who I'm playing with. So I got looking at the thing and I figured out that my name was not even on the list. I never was entered.
Oh shit.
So I forgot to put my name down. I had it on my calendar for a long time. I was looking forward to going to it. And then So I text Curtis like, hey, I think I must have forgot to enter. And he's like, oh, let's see what we can do. So like 20 minutes later, he's like, yeah, we got you a spot. So so luckily I still got to go play. I was glad I got in because had been banking on it for quite a while. I was going to go play golf, but ended up golfing with a couple sweet dudes. We were all pretty similar age, between like 20. I think they were like 27 to 31, kind of like same age as us. So yeah, they all golfed really well though. I think 2 guys were like a 4 handicap, and the other guy was like a 9 or something. So me being the old 17 cap was, just sliding in to help get the boys some points. But we ended up winning the tournament. We got first place.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. Nice work, man.
Yeah, I forgot to say anything. We won the dang thing. It was pretty sweet.
What'd you get?
$45 GC to the pro shop. So I put it on
come
the
on,
account.
Curtis.
Yeah, no way.
$45. I'm calling you out, dude.
It was like 180 for the team, right? $90.
Yeah,
180. So I was like, yeah, that's not bad.
You can do better, Kurt.
But still,
out, bro.
But we actually, we tied for first. So first got 55 each, and we got 45 each. So somehow we must have lost a tiebreaker. But we tied for first in the tournament. I shot at 81 in the Shamble. So that's just like using the best drive and then going in from there. But like I think I only missed 1 fairway all day. We used probably like 6 of my drives on the thing.
Nice,
it was
dude.
Crazy. The lessons paid off for that one. So yeah, had like a few birdies and I think I had the most points. It was like a stable for a tournament. I had the most points of anyone in the team, but it's because I have a 17 handicap, so it looked like I shot.
Man, the high handicap reserve is so valuable in those tournaments.
Yeah.
Like we learned fast last year in men's nights. Like we can actually contribute. Which it's nice that they set that stuff up like that, because it's if it wasn't a way to do that, we'd just be liabilities. Right?
Yeah, essentially, right. So
I even got a couple of rounds in North Battleford.
Yeah, you did. How'd it go over there? What'd you shoot?
I didn't keep track the first 9. I did 9 on Friday at the North Battleford Golf and Country Club, but it was good. I didn't play too bad. Got a couple pars and whatever, but it was just like a average. And then I shot a 107 on Saturday at Jackfish Lake.
Okay, that's enough.
Could have been a lot lower. I missed a lot of putts that I should have made.
Oh, okay. Probably didn't practice much lately either. So
no, that's the first I've touched my clubs in
6 months.
Couple months, a few months at least. Yeah.
No, man, I'm pumped to be back golfing. I really enjoyed the golf in Arizona too. With at the wedding, we had a really nice time. Caden Kelsey's wedding. Donnie Joe took a buck or 2 from me. A couple games down there. If we didn't talk about that yet,
he's sneaky good at golf. That guy.
He is sneaky, and he just has a short little swing. Just very But yeah, it was good. I've been getting a couple lessons, and they've been paying off. Finally figured out how to drive a ball, and it worked out on Saturday. So that was nice. So yeah, gonna go golf again this week. Get a couple more rounds in, and playoffs are here. So like we talked about on the top of the show, setting up at the Dome for the red lot for the party down there. They're expecting like 5,000 people a night to go through that setup. So
Calgary's buzzing, man.
People come and go. How do they say they have like 10,000 a night come in and go?
I'm going down there tomorrow before the game.
Oh really? Oh nice.
Oh yeah.
We'll see you there.
Hell yeah, dude.
So but anyways, man, the playoffs starting up. Okay, so I got my list. We were talking about some picks. So
we both did an NHL playoff bracket. So we kind of have our predictions on how it's going to go.
On NHL.com, right?
Yeah. And it's no secret that we're hockey fans on the pod. And it's an exciting time for Alberta. Both Alberta teams are in. And there's a chance that the Oilers play the Flames in round 2. So this could be a rowdy playoffs. It'd be so good.
Okay, so if you're not a hockey fan, you might not enjoy this part. But anyways, we're going to have a good time with it. So
it started in the East in the Atlantic Division. What do you got?
I just have my thing like this where you can just
the Atlantic is Toronto's division.
Oh, okay. So we'll start off first. Matchup will be Florida versus Washington. I've got Florida in 5. What's your pick?
I got the exact same. I think Florida's gonna roll the Caps. The Caps Florida just plays. They're too fast, and Caps are old, and their goaltending sucks. So bye Caps. Next
series matchup. There's 8 series total here in the first round. The next one is Toronto against Tampa. The game's on right now. What's the score behind you there?
It's 1-rip Toronto.
Toronto? Okay. I've got Toronto in 6 in that series.
I got Toronto in 7 as well. Okay. I just think that Tampa's played a lot of hockey in the past 2 years.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say.
Toronto's buzzing.
I think they're due.
Matthews
they're due to get out of the first round.
It's time to get the monkey off the back. So
they don't have to play Boston in the first round. So that's okay. We're in agreement here so far. Okay, then I've got the next series is Carolina Boston. I've got Carolina in 6. in that series?
I got Boston in 6.
Okay, all right. Well, first,
because they're so Carolina's number 1 goalie's hurt, and
is he not coming back?
I don't know if he'll be back anytime soon, but Rant to start. Rant is good. I just think that Boston's a little bit more grittier than the Canes.
That's fair.
But
Canes got a pretty wicked record coming in though, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyways, next series in the East, the final one in the East in the first round, the New York Rangers against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I have Pittsburgh in 7.
Got the Rangers in 6. Shesterkin, man, the Vezina favorite.
I think that
lights out, man.
But I've got Pittsburgh with the experience and it's one of those last couple of years you're going to see Crosby and Malkin together and Letang.
The problem with the Penguins though is the supporting cast isn't what it used to. Like when they won those 2 cups, like they had they had Kessel and Bonino and like all those like secondary guys were super helpful, but there really is not that much depth there. I just think that New York is built to do some winning.
That's fair. So then we'll move to the West. I think we'll be pretty similar on this one. Colorado, Nashville. I've got Colorado bringing out the broom and sweeping the.
Because Saros is missing the first 2 games minimum.
Yeah.
That's tough for the Preds.
So 4 games there for Colorado. They're gonna steamroll Nashville, in my opinion. What do you got? 4 games or 5?
4 games. Yeah.
4. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that Colorado's scary, man.
Next series in the Central, I picked the Blues here, but
me too.
Because you did,
yeah.
And I was gonna say back like maybe I should have took Minnesota, but let's go anyways. I put this in this morning or last night. So St. Louis had 6 games.
I had St. Louis in 7. I just think that the experience will show for the Blues there.
Yeah, and it may or may not like that one could go either way. That one's
It's gonna come down to goaltending. It's gonna come down to goaltending, I think.
Yeah. So Flower against Husso or Binnington.
Yeah, and then
I think St. Louis has the goalies there. If they show up.
Yeah, but playoff Flower, like he's just off of Vezina, so and Talbot had a really good end to the season too. So if Flower falters, I think it's pretty square. But
that brings us to the Pacific Division, the Calgary Flames against the Dallas Stars. For all our Texas Cowboy shit fans, sorry, but the Stars are going down in 5.
Yeah, agreed. I went to the last game that Calgary played against Colorado, and that was still Calgary saw which like
Colorado or Dallas.
Dallas, and it was still a game where like there was something on the line, so it was like full squads, like everybody was trying their butts off, and Calgary was just like head and shoulders above
so
the
much
Stars.
Better.
Yeah, like you just like the one like I think Calgary's built more for the playoffs, and like Dallas doesn't really have any grit, and I think Calgary can just wear them down with speed and how hard they play. So Flames. Let's go.
Yeah, Flames in 5. Okay, that brings us to our final first round matchup. The Edmonton Oilers against the LA Kings. I have Edmonton in 5. And we'll see.
As much as it pains me to say, I have Edmonton in 5 as well.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that could fuck the Oilers is Mike Smith. That's the only thing I'm scared of.
Yeah.
That's the only goaltending. But the nice thing for them is like the Kings are missing Doughty and Jonathan Quick is sketchy too. So
yeah, I think I've thought the Kings have been overrated all year, and somehow they snuck into the playoffs in my but I don't watch them that much. But I feel like they've been overrated all year, and I just don't see them making much of a run. But
they remind me of the 2015 Calgary Flames, who they didn't really mean to make the playoffs, but they just had a good season enough where they made her in. Yeah.
And I
got shown.
I really I think that's how it's going to go. And so what do I have here? Pittsburgh's an underdog, and so is St. Louis. So I've got 2 dogs, I think, out of the 6.
2 dogs, baby.
Mostly the top seeds. But then let's go quickly. There's only 6 or 7 more series. Let's just go quick and keep going through it. So then that brings us to the Northeast. You got Toronto and we've got Toronto and the Panthers. So I went for an all Canadian final here. I got Toronto over Florida because I think Toronto could go all the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to, but I just want to see a Canadian team win the cup again. So that's why I kind of picked a homer bracket, but it's not that far off. I think it could.
No, I think it's good. Yeah.
And I think Toronto, with the crowd behind them too, and things really freaking rocking at the stadium, I think they could take. I didn't pick number of games here. I just picked the teams now.
Yeah, you don't get to in the second round anyways.
Yeah, so I got Toronto over the Panthers in the second round. Go to the conference final.
Yeah, I got same.
Okay, so that takes me to you've got New York and Boston. I've got Carolina, Pittsburgh. So I'm taking Pittsburgh to go to the conference final against Toronto.
I got New York.
New York to the conference final. Okay, so let's go to the West. I've got Colorado in the conference final.
Same. Colorado and Calgary.
Yeah, and then I picked Edmonton just because I like Edmonton. The Calgary Edmonton series, just with it being like the Battle of Alberta, like I think any fucking thing could happen in that one too. I know Calgary.
That's gonna be a barn burner,
right? Like I fucking hope that happened because that'd be so unfreaking believable. And we just happen to have some tickets to be able to go to that shit now. Like, holy fuck, that would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, I knew that we had to have a Calgary, like a Battle of Alberta in our lifetimes, and this could be like one.
This could be the one.
And it could be like a few years. We could have a few of them here coming up. Like for us to be at our first time in our adult lifetimes to have these games be able to play, like I'm fucking jacked. I hope it happens. So I took Edmonton there because Edmonton, like with McDavid, Draisaitl, Canes lit it up the second half of the year here. Tyson Barrie has underperformed this season. Mike Smith has probably overperformed for a 40-year-old goaltender. Mikko Koskinen still got 25 wins this season as a like a 1B goalie. Like he wasn't
3 goals against average.
Right, he's that's in a shitload of goals, but the Oilers can make up for it too, right? So I don't know. That's what I've got. I've got Colorado, Edmonton in the conference final, and then just for shits, I fucking took Edmonton to take Colorado. But they've actually beat Colorado in the last few games here, and actually pretty reasonably. So I got an Edmonton Toronto Cup final, and then I don't care who wins there really. Like I'd love to see Edmonton win, but I'd also be okay with Toronto because we'd have a Canadian Cup winner. So. And same thing with Calgary. I'd love to see Calgary, Toronto in the finals because Toronto against Pittsburgh in the final or New York, like I still would take Toronto just being a homer, being a Canadian fan. So that's what I got. I got an Edmonton, Toronto Cup final, and I'm not going to pick a winner from there. What do you got? You got Calgary,
Toronto, and I'll pick a Calgary for sure.
Picking Calgary, yeah.
For sure,
you
man.
got I think we're set up here for pretty sweet playoffs, and I hope we're not heartbroken here.
Yeah. Man, if Calgary loses in the first round, I'd be so sad. But I just want them to go deep just for the sake of like how awesome it'd be for Calgary. Like,
we're due.
Like we could. I was talking to Brian Hansen on the phone today, and I said like, how cool would it be for Calgary, like, even to like win the cup or go on a deep cup run, and then roll right into Stampede? Like it would just be nonstop energy in the city, and Calgary could use the dub like that.
I got chills thinking about that. So.
Oh man, and I just want to experience the Red Mile like in like a Western Conference final or Stanley Cup final format. Like imagine how rowdy that Red Lot's going to be in a Calgary Toronto Stanley Cup final. Like it's fucking wild, man. Yeah, so I think that would just be so cool.
The U.S. ratings will go to shit. So Gary Bettman will probably try and fuck that up, but we'll see.
I think that the NHL has a good enough following, and there's enough American players involved. It would be like between Matthews and Kachuk and Gaudreau and all those fellas. You could I think you still get enough people, but maybe you wouldn't get you're like if the Dallas Stars going around, you probably wouldn't capture that audience. But I don't know. I just want Calgary to win. It'd be so cool to be in the city when they fucking win the Stanley Cup. Be unreal.
I hope they could do it. Could you imagine if we're in the building for that shit?
Oh my God. That'd be a top 5 life experience.
Yeah, right. Okay. So that's what we're dreaming about right now. We've got hockey on our brains, playoff time. I hope that the Dome is fucking rocking
tomorrow. Man, tomorrow I'm glad I decided to go to game 1 versus game 2 because tomorrow is going to be buzzing in the Dome. It's going to be fucking crazy. Like 20,000 people. Like there's actually like it's one of those things where there's some confidence in the fan base and the team, and it's just going to be
should steamroll.
Be awesome, man. Yeah.
Okay, I'm pumped, man. We got our show to get to though, so let's wrap it up, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening. This has been Cowboy Show 10 Wacey. I'm Ted Stovin. He's Wacey Anderson. Thanks for tuning in. Get your cowboy shit at cowboyshit.ca or your favorite Western store anywhere, almost in North America now. We got a few spots. So, see y'all next time.
Well, I've seen Jesus play with flames in a lake of fire that I was standing in. Met the devil in Seattle, spent 9 months inside the lion's den. I met Booty at another time. He showed me a glowing light within. But I swear God is there every time I stare to the eyes of my best friend. Says my son, it's all been done. Someday gonna wake up old and gray. So go and try and